And good morning, everybody. Welcome to the channel as I'm going to be doing some live sprinting here today and just trying to have some fun. I popped up on here during the week a couple of days ago and had some fun just working on this repair job for the story that I'm writing right now. So I am glad to just be back on here today. I'm just, again, continuing to clean up a story that I'm working on right now, which is a horror story. It's the first time I've ever really written a horror story. There's a couple other ones that maybe were right on the borderline of horror, but this one is definitely a horror story in the 1980s horror tradition, so to speak, from movies. So I'm excited to work on that one because I'm a person that likes horror movies. So just doing this is just kind of a natural type of a fit for me. So I'm excited to just jump into it. So I'm looking forward to continuing on this. One of the things that I was doing with this particular story is I decided to put like a prologue because some of the research I had done told me that I needed to almost jump scare at the very beginning of a horror story. So I'm deciding that that is probably a good move. And so rather than do a prologue, because last week we talked about prologues and how some people don't read prologues, and we did some research during the live, and it showed that some people just aren't really into prologues in terms of reading. A lot of people tend to skip over it. And I know I was one of those people, and I didn't realize that so many other people also skip over the prologue. So what I decided to do was just do a chapter one. It'll be a new chapter one that starts back in time, and then chapter two will jump forward to the current story. So that's the plan. That's going to be our plan. Whether it works or not, we'll see. It's just going to be a matter of whether or not I can execute the game plan to perfection. Something that you guys who are into sports, or you women who are into sports, you'll get where I'm coming from. So Jacinto Gonzalez, good to see you again. Yaza H, thank you for joining us. And just going to have a little fun today with some writing and some editing. So it should be a lot of fun getting this first chapter cleaned up. I got to plant some seeds for what's going on with it's going to be going on later in the story. And so I've got to basically use that first chapter / prologue, to kind of sprinkle the seeds of clues that are going to hopefully make sense by the end of the story if I do it correctly. Yaza H says, I've always been one to read the prologue. And I think it would be interesting if there was some way to get statistics about reading the prologue versus not reading the prologue. I think a lot of people probably dip their toe in it a little bit and just maybe check out the first few sentences of it. And if they feel like it's either not grabbing them, or it doesn't seem consistent with the story, or it's, teasing the sequel, or it's, just not what they're looking for. A lot of times people will just skip over it. And I think maybe part of it is if you just grab them right off the bat with the prologue, and keep the prologue short, then maybe that'll be enticing enough for them to stick around for the full prologue. But have you ever been tempted to skip over the prologue? I have skipped over it, but there are times when I've read it. There are times I can remember at least once, maybe twice, where I did not read the prologue, and then I got maybe a chapter or two in, and I kind of wished I had read the prologue, because I got the feeling as I was about a chapter or two in that there was something that I was missing. So I went back and read the prologue, and I think in one of the cases, what I was reading made more sense after going back and reading the prologue. So that was a little bit of a lesson there for whether to or not to read the prologue. So let's see. I would think it could, again, if it's something that like a piece of information that you maybe want the reader to have before they begin, then I think the prologue, even for a short story, it could be valuable. That's for sure. I think there's opportunities for it. Let's see. Margaret, welcome, 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 welcome. Glad to see you stopping by to ask how. Let's see, stopping in for a minute to ask how to pages are going before I got to scoot to persuasion discussion on Discord. I have got to get into Discord. I know I'm not going exactly where you were going, but I need to get into Discord a little bit more because I'm in a couple of Discords and I have not been a good Discorder. So I need to get back into that because there are some really cool people that are on Discord, and that's definitely jumping. So I need to jump into that. But I thank you for stopping in. You are definitely one of my best booktube buddies, and it's always great to see your smiling face right there on the screen. So thank you so much for joining in, and I hope you have a good Discord. I am there was one Discord that I was in, and there was a Brandon Sanderson book that I was supposed to read, and I got caught up in some other things. You know, life kind of jumps at you from different angles, and so I did not get the book read. But I did say I was going to get into Brandon Sanderson this year, so I will be jumping into some Brandon Sanderson. So, Margaret, I got to get you to pop on here one of these days to join me. Let's see. Margaret says I'm not a good Discorder either. This is a time limited thing. Good for you. Good for you. Yeah, it is, because there's the Discord. I'm in, I think, 2 of them, and it's just like Twitter. It just keeps it's like, geez, it just gets crazy. So let's see what else I got here. You guys are kind of coming at me here a little bit. Let me try to catch up. Let's see. Sometimes I get hyped on the prologue and then I'm totally disappointed by the actual story. Yeah, that can be something that can happen for sure if you, if it maybe oversells. If it's like advertising, it oversells something that it doesn't deliver. Yeah, it can be. I can imagine it could be disappointing. I haven't had that experience yet, but then again, I haven't been reading the prologue the way I should. Not all books have prologues. But yeah, it was an interesting discussion last week. We were talking prologues and we were talking epilogues and whether they are a good thing or a bad thing. And I said that I can't remember the last time I wrote an epilogue, that it was like years ago when I was in high school. And then I found out that no, actually I did write an epilogue to a book that I wrote, I think about 5 or 6 years ago, that had an epilogue. So it wasn't a lie. I just forgot. But anyway, prologues or epilogues. Yeah, you definitely don't want to oversell too much, especially if you cannot deliver in the story. So let's see. I think they're going pretty well. I think so. Yeah. Time will tell ultimately. Time will definitely tell ultimately. But yeah, good. Really good discussion about prologues and epilogues last week, and we actually did some research. Romeo and Juliet. See, I gotta get my old school game back on, because I have definitely been slacking with the old school game. So I got to. I know Shakespeare. I just have read very little Shakespeare over the years, and so I definitely need to jump up and get on board. So one of the things that I know I need to do better at is because a lot of contemporary books, a lot of times, are adaptations of some Shakespeare stories. And so you start to read some of those and you're like, this sounds familiar, even for me, having not read a lot of Shakespeare. And then all of a sudden you look at it and you're like, oh yeah, this is a retelling of, Macbeth or something like that. I read one that was a retelling of Macbeth. So that's interesting. I'll have to check that out. I think I actually might have a copy of Romeo and Juliet. So I may need to check that out. I think I have actually, that might be one of a few Shakespeare stories that I actually do have a copy of. I got Margaret hyped up here because I am making progress on my pages. So yeah, you gotta just keep it going. I mean, I've got like so many things going right now. And one of the things that I talked about earlier this week is I'm going to look a little bit harder at self-publishing. And by the end of the year, I mean, obviously, I'm not getting any younger. So by the end of the year, I think I'm going to really look at self-publishing some of my better works. I'm going to still maybe hold out a little bit of hope of getting traditionally published and still keep pushing for that, for some of the elite pieces that I've written, because I just think they're good and they have a commercial appeal. But it's tough to break into the traditional publishing sector. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm definitely going to commit to working on, shining, polishing, sharpening some of my pieces that I'm going to look at self-publishing and, using some of my background in marketing to try to get those going. So that's something I'm going to be looking at a little bit more this year. So stay tuned for that to come. So let me see, make sure I didn't miss anybody here. Appreciate all you guys coming through. So, okay, so back to the story that I'm working on here as my computer went to sleep on me. So I'm going to really work on sharpening that first chapter, prologue, disguised as a first chapter. I'm going to work on sharpening that up a little bit. And again, sprinkling those little clues that are hopefully going to make sense as the story goes on. And then I'll just get in there and get out, like is typically the case for me. So just so you guys know, I am about 17,000 words into this story. And so I usually say when I get past like 15,000, that's usually a good sign that I'm going to finish the story. So that's where I'm at, trying to continue to sharpen this to really put the hook, if you will, in the reader right off the rip. Let's see. I've got 32 pages to type up by end of January, and then dive into research, follow-up, and plot holes and such. Good work. Yeah, you are on it. Yeah, I've had to do some research for this particular story because I'm doing just a tiny little bit of world building, and so I've set it in a specific area, but I've fictionalized the area. So I had to go in there and because of the opening scene, one of the characters is in a spot on the map, and I gotta get the orientation correctly so that it all makes sense. So I was doing some research on that and doing some research because it's set at a camp. So I was doing a little bit of research on that. I mean, I used to work at a camp when I was younger. I've been to camps, so I do have some knowledge of that. But yeah, you're right. Plot holes. This is just things that you gotta certainly look at. I was supposed to be going back and editing my NaNoWriMo story, but I've been slacking on that one. But I think once I get done with this story, then I'll go back and start the editing process for the NaNoWriMo piece. And then, of course, I'm also working on a 5-part book series, my 5-part dystopian book series. But I am really trying to study up on world building because this is going to have significant world building. Even though I'm going to use a lot of familiar locations to people, the way that I'm going to change things for this dystopian series is going to require a lot of work and a lot of organization to make sure I can pull it off correctly. Let's see. I guess the Cinderella concept is evenly often recreated. Yeah, yep. Definitely. Cinderella, I would say. Yeah, I think there are varying versions of that. I think you're absolutely right. I hadn't even thought about that, but that's true. There's a Cinderella element in so many stories. Let's see. Is there a different point of felt prestige as a traditionally published author? Yeah, I think to be traditionally published gives a certain level of prestige, and to maybe a lot of readers, probably a certain level of credibility. But I think one way that you can kind of offset that a little bit is to make sure that you are is to make sure that your story is clean, it's error-free, that you've used beta readers, that you've edited thoroughly, that your cover is on point, and just to minimize mistakes. I think one thing that people associate a lot of times with fair or unfair with self-published is that it's there's not a lot of attention to detail. And so I think that's one of the things that I think a lot of people perceive in self-publishing. Now, personally, I like reading. Like on my Kindle, I have a ton of self-published books that I read, and a ton of books from small publishers that I read, just by doing a lot of searching to see what's out there with different types of authors, short stories, barely novel length stories, and then longer novel length stories. So I would say, yeah, there's a certain amount of prestige that people would definitely attach to traditional publishing versus self-publishing. But I don't know that self-publishing has ever been any bigger than what it is right now. And some of that could be because traditional publishers are probably being a little bit pickier with what they're publishing. All right, let's see. Mysterious camp setting details. Yes, I have always been fascinated by summer camp horror stories. Going back to when I was a kid years ago, and I just love doing that. So just trying to come up with a nice isolated setting. I will tell you that the setting is in a very rural, remote setting, of course, where cell coverage is not very good. You know how that works. So I've got that part set up. It's in actually a beautiful area that I've driven through before. So in the upper reaches of Michigan's Upper Peninsula. So that's a little bit of a clue as to where it's set there. Let's see. Yes, we should do another short. Yeah, we should. I would definitely love to connect back with you again and chop it up a little bit. Yes, by all means, go ahead and get going. Get your Discord going. And it's cool to see you've embraced that. Yeah, I might see if I can leverage Discord a little bit better as well. So you take care, Margaret. Thank you so much for coming through. Let's see. Nazy is in here with us. I can only work on one project at a time. I admire writers who can balance multiple projects. Yeah, oh my gosh, I have maybe kind of an attention span issue. Sometimes if that's one of the reasons, like when you talk about like writer's block, a lot of people have it. I typically don't, because if I stall on a project, then I jump into something different. So I'm usually running multiple projects parallel. And I usually don't have a problem with that, because what I'll do is I'll have them running parallel. And then if one starts to really take off, then I'll just go and lock in on that one to finish it and make sure that I really pursue it right to the end. I try to stay fresh with the other projects so I don't forget where I was or what I was thinking. So I try to take really thorough notes that I keep with the project, so that if I have to step away from it for a period of time, I can jump back into it and hopefully be able to hit the ground running again. But it is difficult to truly manage multiple projects at the same time. It is difficult, especially if you're determined to run them along the same parallel track. But for me, if one project really takes off, then I will just focus on that one and put the other one or other ones aside to really focus on that one. Do your characters have philosophical belief? Yeah, you know what? That's a great question, and that's probably a whole video topic that I could get into. I try to character sketch in pretty significant detail, so beyond like the physical characteristics, which I try not to get too much into, because unless it's really important, because part of it I like to let the reader picture the character the way that they want to picture the character. But sometimes it's important to have certain physical characteristics because they matter sometimes for a particular reason. But yeah, in terms of philosophy, personality, characteristics, I do try to get into that a little bit, especially if it's important to the story, that you get a little bit deeper into those kind of intangible type characteristics of a character. it could be beneficial. It could be just plain smart to have those kind of characteristics associated with your character. So good discussion. Very, very good discussion. So one of the things that I'm trying to do in this, because coming into the week, I had this story going and I thought for sure that I totally screwed it up because I wanted to do something to put the prologue new first chapter on. And I thought I'd messed it up and I just threw another character in there. And then I had to tease that the other character was going to come in there because I didn't want to introduce a new character, a significant new character, like, 12,000 words into the story. So I had to go back and lay the groundwork for this character to come into the story. And I'm like, man, this is a mess. This is not going to work. And so I sat down this week and I did the pop-up live and I was able to start ironing it out. And so I think I'm getting it back on track. And now I just got to add a few pieces to the puzzle and I should be in a pretty good spot. So fingers crossed that will be the case. Let's see. Are there things you would never do while writing or in your stories? I would say certain types of violence in graphic detail is just something I don't really do. I think a lot of people do. I think for some people there's an ability to get attention from readers by doing some of that. So those are things that I try to really avoid going into really significant detail. It can sometimes distract from the story, but it depends on the kind of story that people are writing. Maybe that makes sense. I don't know. But I'm trying to think of anything else. That's a really good question. I have to put some more thought into that. But yeah, I just I think just extreme portrayals of different types of violence is just things that I just really avoid in my writing. There's some times where in a story that you might be discussing topics of like sexism and racism, different types of isms and phobias that you have to be really careful how you handle it to not come across in a bad way. So good question though. Definitely want to put some thought into that. Let's see. Character plus want plus obstacle equals conflict. Yeah. I think those are definitely as your character developing. You definitely want to put your character through a certain amount of conflict to kind of test their mettle a little bit to see, because if you build your character up, you tear your character down, and then build the character back up. And so establishing the character of the character, so to speak, what the character wants, and then, as you mentioned, the obstacles that are in the way of that character achieving what they ultimately want to achieve. And so as you put your character through significant obstacles, you hope that you built them back up. So you built them up, you tear them down because of the obstacles that they encounter. And then as they overcome those obstacles, that's part of your process of building them back up. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely a tried and true formula that really has been, proven to be successful. So yeah, great points. So good discussion to kick it off here. We can definitely keep the discussion going here as I start to do some sprinting here. So I'm going to go ahead and bring the clock up in here. And so as usual, I use online-stopwatch.com. Let's see here when somebody slipped in here. Yuki slipped in here. I would say want, need, because sometimes what they want is not what they need. And so need could say that's a good point. That's a good point. there is a difference between wants and needs. Some guys want a PlayStation 5, but they don't necessarily need it. You might need, something that's much more practical for the price of a PlayStation 5. So I used to be a big video game person way back in the day. But the last, I got I think PlayStation 3 was the last one that I got. And that was pretty pricey at the time that I got that. And I don't use it very often. So when PlayStation 4 came out, I passed. And then when PlayStation 5 came out, I passed. And I went back and I looked at the cost of a PlayStation 4 because I thought surely the cost of a PlayStation 4 must have come down significantly. No, not really. So video games, it's a lucrative business. Maybe that's what I should have gone into when I was much, much younger. Let's see. Okay, so let me go ahead and get going with the writing sprint here. Got the clock set. You guys if you want to throw more questions at me or comments, definitely let me know. It's an open forum. If you guys want to talk about stuff, just go ahead and throw it in the chat and we'll get to it. So in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and get some writing and editing done. So hopefully you guys will do likewise, write, edit, read, whatever you guys want to do. And again, if you got questions or comments, just keep throwing them at me. Okay, so that was that for the first 15 minutes. Let me go ahead and pop that up on the screen here. So I ended up getting 372 words written in addition to some editing. So I was going back and fixing some pieces to make it all make sense. And so, in addition to those 372 words, I was able to kind of continue to make some adjustments so that it flows and everything continues to make sense, which is a good thing. I've got the framework in place for the that first chapter, and so I'm trying to build some suspense and didn't totally go for the jump scare thing, but it definitely is going to hopefully be a scary type of a beginning to the story, and you get the feeling of fear as you read that first chapter. So I'm going to still continue to polish, sharpen, polish to make sure everything is just as good as it can be before I jump back into the heart of the story. So making some good progress there. Hope you guys are all making progress with whatever you're working on this morning, whether you're reading, whether you're writing, whether you're editing, whether you're doing some Saturday morning cleaning around the house, or whatever you guys are doing to keep busy. I hope things are going well for you. I hope your weekend is off to a positive start. If you have to work, then you have to work because you got to pay those bills somehow, some way. So that is totally understandable as well. If you're working and you're listening to this, then thank you for joining the rebellion. But hopefully, again, everything is going well for you guys this morning. I am going to restart the clock because I'm going to keep my momentum going here. So let me go ahead and grab the clock here once more. And the 15 minutes going here again. So again, if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, bits of advice, or you want to give others bits of advice, go ahead and throw it on in there and have some fun with it. All right, here we go. Sprint number, this is number 2. Let's do, actually, let me make a little bit more specific note of that. Let's see. Let's see. I think, let's see. Jacinto says if the character development isn't done properly, would it affect the storytelling in a bad way? I think it depends on if you're more of a character driven reader or writer. Which I am. I get into characters. Compelling characters, is a slight edge to me over the story. The story is obviously important too, but I'm definitely very character driven. So I think if character development is not on point and you're not either hating, loving to hate, or hating to love a character, then you're probably not stirring the emotions in a way that I think is going to hook and then keep your reader hooked. So I think bad character development is definitely something that you really want to avoid. And part of that also is from the very beginning, just making sure that you've really sketched out your characters thoroughly and you find a way to casually, I think, introduce them over the course of the story, especially the early point of the story, to get your reader familiar with this character and to either fall in love or fall in hate, if you will, with the character. Good question. All right, let's see. Sprint number 2. Let me go ahead and get that up there right now. All right. Any more questions? Just go ahead and drop them in the chat, or comments. Go ahead and drop them in the chat, and I'll definitely be getting to them even during the sprints. So here we go. All right, so I just typed in 211 words during that sprint, which included some research. So I had to look up a few things just to make sure that I was on point with where I was headed with the story. So I had to definitely confirm some facts and make sure that everything was going in a positive way there. So that ended up being a good thing. And I'm doing a little bit of a flashback section. So that's actually kind of fun because it's going to help me contextualize a lot of what I'm doing here in this particular part of the book. So let's see. Jacinto says, I'm trying to buy Goldfinger book. I have seen your review on it. Was it a good reading experience? I have heard people saying the film version is better than the book. I think this is one of the rare instances where the film probably was better than the book, but it was a good book. It was kind of a classic Ian Fleming type of a book. I read the ebook. I don't have the physical copy of the book, so um, that's definitely something that I have to look and see that. It might be kind of worth looking at, seeing if I can get the physical copies of some of those James Brown books. James Brown, excuse me, James Bond books. I'm pretty sure James Brown didn't write any books, but yeah, I'll have to definitely look into that. That is an interesting thought to consider for sure. So yeah, I don't know where you're looking for them. I mean, there's some options you can definitely look at, such as eBay is probably a place to look at them. Then there's also probably Amazon. If you're looking at probably some, I don't know, early editions, assuming that they're written in editions, you're probably going to be looking at some pretty expensive options for buying them. So actually, now that you mention it, let's see. Let's see what's out there here real quick. Hang on a second. Um, look it up. I'm looking it up right now on Amazon. It's pretty decently rated on Amazon. Looks like you can get a paperback for $12. I'm not sure. It might be a newer edition, but you can definitely get them. They're out there. So if you're really looking, that's probably a newer copy, of course. But if you want to get a physical book, sometimes the physical book is a little bit better, a little more fun to read than the ebook. I think from a retention standpoint, for me, it is better. Let's see, type 0 words. We did a lot of scrolling and staring off into space. Sometimes you need that time. So don't feel any guilt about doing that. Trust me on that one, because I probably did a little bit of that too. I just called it research, but I did do some research too. So yeah, it's just sometimes you just need that time. So I'm only going to do another probably sprint here, and then I'm going to probably get ready to wrap up because I just got a few things I got to do before this afternoon. So I got to get going with that. My haircut is fine, so I'm in good shape there. But a few more things to do, and then I'm going to be on the radio later today doing some broadcasting because I broadcast basketball games. So I'll be doing that later today. All right, let me go ahead and throw the clock back up in the stream here. And we're going to call this final 15-minute sprint, reading, editing, writing, chatting, you name it, you can do it. All right, here we go. 15 minutes. Put that on the screen. We're going to go right there like that. So 15 minutes, and here we go. Okay, 292 words for me on the last 15-minute sprint for this morning. And it is still morning, at least here on the East Coast. It's still morning. So let me get that off the screen real quick. So made a lot of progress and still some progress to go here. I got to write a couple of small flashback scenes in this first chapter to kind of round it out a little bit and sprinkle those breadcrumbs to hopefully, or at least start sprinkling those breadcrumbs to hopefully lead back and have everything make sense and then be able to move forward progressively after a good first chapter tease to really get you into the story. So that's where it's at for me. And let me go ahead and just make sure I haven't missed anything over here in the chat. I think I caught up with everything that everybody was sending me. Didn't see anything in the private chat. So I feel like I'm all caught up. So I'm going to go ahead and get ready to close it out for the morning and just before high noon here. Got some things that I got to do to get ready for what I'm going to be into today. So got to do a little bit of work today. So as I mentioned, I'm going to go and be on the radio later this afternoon. So I'm going to go ahead and get ready for that, relax for a little bit, maybe have a little bit of lunch as well. Let's see. Nazy says, I gave up and did some reading. I hope you're reading something good at least. Gosh, it reminds me, it's the 30th and I got today and tomorrow and I got it. I don't have to, but I want to finish up my last book for the month of January, and I'm only about 45% of the way through it. So that might be some of what I'll do here for the next hour before I have to get out of the house and head over to the arena. So we'll see how that goes. But hopefully you were reading something that you enjoyed and brought you some pleasure, at least a little bit of pleasure for the morning. So, all right. Well, thanks everybody who came through. If you haven't hit the like button and you could, I would definitely appreciate it. Thank you for joining and participating and just allowing me to have a good time. I hope you guys had a little bit of a good time as well. And I will probably jump on here tomorrow. So just a heads up, at about the same time tomorrow, Sunday, I'll probably be on here yet again. So with that, I will bid you farewell. Have a great rest of your day.